I'm Yuri Gore, and Happy New Year to you all. I hope you had a great Christmas, great New Year's, holidays, and whatnot. This is my first video back for the year, so I thought I'd talk about last year a little bit. Okay, it's technically not my first video. I released this, like, full album upload, but that's not like a proper video, so I don't know if that counts. The topic of this video, as the thumbnail and title suggests, is I released 5 albums last year. All by myself. No mixing, mastering help, no soloists, no composition help, nothing. Just one man and a dream. No, but really, 5 albums is a lot, truly. I don't know a single friend of mine who is a musician in any way, whether it's trying to break into the industry, they've got a foot in the door or whatever. I've never seen anyone. They all struggle to even release an EP a year, let alone 5. So whilst I am aware of how impressive that is, it's actually not as impressive as it sounds. And quite frankly, it's very achievable for you too. So to preface this, firstly, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Pretty much everyone lies. So if you're looking at this video or someone else's video and you're going, beating yourself up about it, why you can't do that, don't do that. That is not the goal here. Those travel bloggers who have found financial freedom traveling the world are lying to you. They're all living off dad's money. None of them worked for that. And the same sentiment goes to music, art, language, cooking, whatever. It even goes for this video. Now, I would prefer the term clickbait rather than I lied to you. But if you noticed, I said I released 5 albums this year. Not I wrote 5 albums this year. Although, to be fair, I wrote a lot more music for other projects that hasn't yet been released, so I probably have written more than 5 albums this year. But that's not the point here. Before we get deeper into that point, let's talk about those 5 albums. So those 5 albums in question were Exposure, Divine Devotion, The Sounds in the Pages, This Is the Last Time, and Tales from the Hellfire Saloon. Also, we hit 300 subs like 5 hours before midnight on New Year's Eve. And I was trying, it was my goal to try and hit 300 before the end of the year. So thank you to everyone who subbed. And if you haven't subbed, join me for the next New Year resolution, if you will, to hit 500 subs before 2027. So please sub. Now, in terms of date and time of creation, Divine Devotion and Exposure were both written entirely in 2025. But that's where it stops. This is the last time I started concepting in 2020. And the conception stage is really, really important to me. It's where I kind of mentally write the album before I put anything to paper or computer, whatever. Maybe one day I can do a video explaining what I actually do there, that kind of mental process. But it's kind of complicated and weird and going to distract from the main point here, which is that the conception stage is very, very important to me writing cohesive music and writing quickly. So I do include the conception stage as part of my compositional writing work part. Anyway, I moved on from the conception stage after 3 years in about 2023 and worked on that all through until 2024. I then started getting really serious on the writing in 2024 and finished the writing early 2025. I then had the entire rest of the year to record and mix that album until literally December when I released it. Tales from the Hellfire Saloon was a very slow process that I started writing in about 2022, very, very minimally. And then I moved to Spain for 2 years and stopped working on it. And then I moved back. I gradually started working on it in 2024 until 2025. And all the way through 2025, I was working on it until December. Literally December. It released in December. And I finished writing it in December. Honestly, I really rushed that album to be done by 2025 so that I could do this clickbaity video for you. If I had just done it at the natural progression rate, it would have been released in early 2026, like January kind of thing. It was pretty much done. I didn't early release it, but I did rush it. And also, just to be clear on this album release on the channel, that's just full album release, just because I like to release all the albums here. So if anyone only follows the channel, they can still see the new releases. The actual proper release on streaming services and everything was, in fact, 2025. I don't remember exactly right there. And finally, many fans of the channel will recognize the tracks in the Sounds in the Pages because it wasn't even intended to be an album. It all started back in 2023 when I made a video called How to Compose Anime Music. And I made a track for it to show as an example. Then I kind of continued that series because people really liked it. I did a few more. You should watch them. New one coming in a few months. And I kind of had so many tracks that I went, why don't I just release this as an album? So I wrote a few more smaller tracks that didn't really analyze anything specifically. They were just anime kind of tracks, just so that the album would be longer. Did that in 2024 into 2025 when it released pretty early. This is all to say that whilst a lot of composing went into this, I did not work on these albums composing for 2 months and then a little bit to mix and then release, and then compose for 2 more months on the next album, mix a little bit and release, and did that 5 times to release 5 albums. It was a lot of organization, a lot of planning behind the scenes, and a lot of work that people maybe didn't see coming up to the release point. Which kind of segues into the next point of how is that even manageable? And the simple answer is genre. I promise you that if these were all the same album, same genre, even something simple like singer-songwriter or some kind of blues thing where you've got like just a 12-bar blues going and just a guitar soloing, even that I would struggle to write 3 albums in a year, let alone 5. The reason it's doable is because they were all different genres. You could have a fresh mind looking at these different projects as you're swapping between them. Now, there was some overlap between these projects, which you could either argue for or against. For example, Tales from the Hellfire Saloon and Exposure were both Westerns. Tales from the Hellfire Saloon and This Is the Last Time were both metal. Divine Devotion and The Sounds in the Pages were both Japanese. So whilst there was overlap, it's only in the core genre, not in the specifics. If we break it down into the specifics, Tales from the Hellfire Saloon is more spaghetti western. Exposure is more American outback country kind of western. We're kind of comparing like Stratocaster and trumpet with slide, guitar, and like twang. Tales from the Hellfire Saloon was djent, whereas This Is the Last Time was black metal, and it was a very chordsy black metal at that. It was kind of, instead of being riff-based, it was more like on the experimental side of things. Or progressive, if you like. So we're comparing tricky rhythms on literally one note versus big, chordal, harmonic, dark, black metal. And finally, Divine Devotion was traditional Japanese, Enki kind of sound, whereas The Sounds in the Pages was modern scoring anime sound. So if you do have 2 projects to work on, or even if you don't, give yourself a second project to work on. Make it up. And then break up your day by working on one and then the other. It's the most effective tip I can give any composer. I wholeheartedly believe you can achieve more in 1.5 hours of composing if you do 45 minutes working on an EDM song and 45 minutes working on a reggae song than if you were to spend 3 hours working on just that one reggae song. And reggae is not a complicated genre. Now, the last point is very small. It kind of is almost in the same thing, and that's just scheduling. Similarly to doing 2 different genres, just doing 2 different projects is so much better for your productivity. Again, it's just that mental swap that stops burnout. Now, this you kind of have to figure out for yourself, a schedule that works for you. For me, I have like a main project and then a side project. And sometimes I can have 2 main projects or 2 side projects or more than that. It really just depends on what I'm working on. And then I break up my day by spending about 70% of the time on my main project and 30% on my side project. But it's not just 70, okay, great, and now I'm going to swap to this one. It's like 25% main, and then 20% side, and then 20% main, and then maybe I'll do a break to do a video like this. And then I'll go back to 20% main, and then 10% side. Did that work out? The maths? I don't know. I don't care. It's kind of hard to explain without showing you my actual schedule, which I'm not, in case you are interested and want to see that. Then I would do a video on it. If not, the main point to extract from that is figure out a schedule that works for you, where you can still spend enough time that you're active in the project and making notable progress, but not so long that you start to burn out of ideas. That's all. Anyway, that's all. Hope that helps you in some way. Thanks everyone for listening to the album. If you did, and if you didn't, you still can. They're up everywhere. Anyway, comment what you want me to do and subscribe. We're going to hit 500 before the end of the year. Ciao, ciao.